It's my privilege to welcome Brad Gaynor to Voices of Change. Brad has over 30 years of experience in education, including 25 years in school leadership and most of that as a primary school principal. Brad also served as the president of the Australian Catholic Primary Principals Association and was a board member of the Australian Primary Principals Association too. Most recently, he was the performance improvement leader with Catholic Ed in Canberra and Goulburn. Brad now spends his time as a leadership coach. Brad, thanks again for the opportunity to have a chat today on Voices of Change.
Thank you, Michael, thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's been great. It's great to be involved, and I've been sort of following the Voices of Change, so it's good to be part of it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Brad, let's just start a little bit more about you and your background and maybe what led you into education. And
I've always been surrounded by teachers. So my mum was the front office secretary at my primary school.
Yeah.
So she would, any young teacher that came to Canberra from the country, she would, which is what used to happen, she would just bring them home for dinner once a week. So always surrounded by teachers. So sort of just when I never had to choose a career. To me, the career chose me. It chose me. So I just basically always knew I was going to be a teacher. I never had to stress about it, worry about it. So I finished school and went pretty much straight to university and became a teacher and loved it from the minute I walked into my first ever classroom as a teacher. And then so within, I think I got my first leadership job at about my 5th or 6th year in teaching, and then just sort of worked my way through and just became a principal, probably too young in hindsight, in my mid-30s became a principal and loved it. It's a privilege to be a principal, to be a leader in a school. And so stuck with that for a while, and then went into the head office as an improvement leader. So that's really working with schools. So I had a range of schools that I look after and support. And then sort of the coaching is sort of the next sort of level from there. So it's all sort of blended in together as I worked out. This year's my 35th year. So.
Yeah, wow, what a journey. And it's just begun, really, in some regards, with the work you're doing now.
I think every turning point, every school, every sort of opportunity you get is a different challenge. And I've always been one that's sort of looked for challenges and looked for something where I can grow as the people I work with.
Yeah, great, Brad. And so in thinking about that, like how do you incorporate that idea of continuous learning, adaptability into your leadership? And specifically, how do you stay relevant in a very fast-changing world?
To be relevant, you really need to be up to date with the trends and what's going on. So I find reading, I do a lot of reading, and that's not necessarily always books. I think people think you've got to read every book that comes up. I don't necessarily read all the book. I might read certain chapters of a book. I might read reviews. I might read blog posts about a book. So I think it's been really aware of what's current trends are and research as well. Staying current to me was also really about being part of networks. So, and I think in many of the roles I've had over the years, I've been involved in networks with Catholic schools, with government schools, with independent schools. So just that in itself gives you so much knowledge about what's going on in education in different sectors, and you're continually learning. The other thing I think too is, where possible, going to quality professional learning. There's a lot out there sometimes. I think you've really got to discern what is there that's right for you, because it's not always great. So I think you've really got to be discerning. And I think too, more recently, I've started to blog and I'm starting to write a bit. So I've sort of got a couple of books in the works at the moment. One with a publisher, so fingers crossed there. And I'm finding that's been really helpful in my learning, because I've sort of got this topic that I want to talk about, so I might start blogging about it, get some ideas from people, and sometimes it takes a while, other times it just pours out. And I find doing the research for that, checking references, reading articles, the research behind it is just another level, which I probably wasn't expecting, to be honest. So that's how I think all leaders have got to stay current and relevant. And definitely, I personally believe, and I've still got one, is have a professional coach.
Yes.
Me, I'm not saying that as a coach. That sounds a bit weird, self-serving.
No.
I've still got the same person I've probably had for like 25 years, and she knows me inside and out, and she's the one that really helps me grow and learn. So that's probably all those sort of things together. I think you do a foundation.
Yeah, nice, Brad. Very sage advice indeed. And couldn't agree with you more about the coach and or mentor, and some people have both because they take on different roles from time to time, don't they? Brad, across Australian media and in schools, as we know, mental health is a massive topic, and it's just sort of ballooned, I guess, ever since pandemic times. Tell me, how do you support the mental health of both students and staff in the schools you've been working with and the leaders you've been working with?
My own understanding has really developed in recent years. One of the reasons why I sort of stepped away from being a principal was pretty much burnt out. I pretty much burned myself out because I was trying to run a massive school, trying to run a national organisation, family, the whole thing. So mental health is something that I think I've got a much better understanding of. Because before it was just, we'll run a program, we'll run a morning tea, we'll keep things warm and fuzzy. And that, I think, is what a lot of people for a long time thought, looking after mental health and wellbeing was about. But I think it's so much more than that. To me, it's got to be a lot more practical. I think you've got to actually offer first of all, I think you've got to offer that psychological safety and that, I think that sort of environment in the school for students and staff where they feel safe, they feel comfortable. I think a lot of kids these days are dealing with issues because they don't necessarily feel safe at school, or there's so many other factors going on in their life. And sometimes school's the only place that they feel safe. So I think you've got to have that for staff as well, more than ever. So I think if you can have that as sort of your foundation, and then I think you've really got to have proactive strategies. So rather than reactive, I think we sometimes focus on reactive things. I think you've really got to have a really good understanding of, I call it life-work integration. So we talk about work-life balance. I actually don't believe in that, to be honest. So it's a concept I've been doing some thinking about as well, and doing some work on. So to me, life comes first. So life definitely comes first, and work, you have to integrate work into your life. So there are times where you can't get a balance. There are times where work is going to be full on. You've got no matter what industry you're in, something due, bang, bang, bang. Other times, you may not. So that's when the balance goes the other way, and your family is more important. So I think you just got to integrate the two of them whenever it suits, whatever's going on. You can't, I think, have it perfect all the time. Sometimes work has to take a priority, and sometimes your family, your life has to take priority. So I think to me, it's understanding that and making people aware that this is it is. Sometimes it's going to be full on. Other times it won't be in work life. I think if you have an understanding of that, then, and I think it's holding people accountable to that life-work integration. I can't be responsible for everyone's mental health, everyone's how safe they feel at school or their well-being. You've got to be responsible for it yourself. So I think if you can set up that psychological safety, set up the perimeters of this is what it is, I think more people will be willing to sort of take it on and look after themselves. And I think whether that's a family, whether it's a staff member, all of that, but it's got to start with psychological safety. I think if they feel safe and comfortable, I think you're halfway there. How does you think that makes sense?
No, it does, and I really like your the life balance, and I'm seeing sort of scales. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
I think the other thing that I a couple of years ago, 23, I did I studied positive psychology. I did a course with the Langdon Institute, and that was just amazing because that really focused on happiness and meditation and really focused on people's strengths and things like that. And I think the strategies I learned from that have not only helped me as a leader, but also as a parent, and I think with kids you see in schools. So you're looking at what's making you happy. What's giving you satisfaction? Okay, well let's and getting kids to actually stop and stop and reflect, and not always see things in a negative light. Okay, that's been a really traumatic experience for me. I get that, and sympathetic. Well, what have you learned from it about yourself, from the situation, the way you handled it? So I think that for me, in terms of mental health and well-being, I think positive psychology is really important too.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. And Brad, we have Leadership Gems as part of our series. And if you could distill sort of this massive experience that you've had across nearly 35 years of leadership into a piece of advice that you would give someone, maybe an aspiring leader, or it could be a current leader, what would you want people to take away from today's conversation?
Leadership is about people first. You can have all the beautiful policies in the world and your strategies and your datas and all those things that we have to have, but I think it's got to start with people and knowing your people. And I think you need to know your people. I once heard a guy called Stephen Brown say, "You know your people outrageously," and but I think you do. I think you've got to build that foundation of knowing the people, having that sense of trust, having that sense of psychological safety. Build those strong relationships. And once you've got that, everything else, in my experience, becomes relatively smooth. Because you've got that trust, you've got that foundation, you've got really good communication. I'm not saying you're their best friend in terms of relationships, but there's that trust, that psychological safety. We trust you. You basically, if you tell us this is where we're going, we'll come with you because we know you, we trust you, you trust us. There's that sort of, that equity in the relationship. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I'm the boss or whatever, but actually we're in this together. So to me, I would say definitely put people first.
Brad Gaynor, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for your wisdom and advice, and I think that's a great way to finish things up with people first. Thank you again for joining us on Voices of Change.
My pleasure. Take care.